Today I would like to present about my article review about the visual impairment and visually impairment. Based on the first article wrote by Ben Powys et al. In 2019 states that in disability sports, classification is an evolving assessment and programming system that strive to make a competition equitable and fair. Based on a second article wrote by Nagomira et al. In 2008 state that persons with disability generally are less likely to have opportunities to be active, making their health concern due to inactivity greater than the able-bodied. Impairment affect muscle strength and motor control performance for those with motor impairment, and this limit their participation in sports. On the third article wrote by Marina Passos Magnos et al. In 2013. She said athletes who participate in track event use the letter T before the class number to indicate the event type, whereas those who participating in field events use the letter F. This short introduction serves to highlight the complexity and variety of Paralympic athlete events, which is also reflected in the development and understanding of research in the discipline. Based on a fourth article wrote by Marilla Magnos et al. In 2013, state that Paralympic sports, the disability must be considered an intrinsic risk factor that cannot be modified. Based on the fifth article wrote by Krishna Wagner et al. In 2018, state that individuals with VI also have a higher risk mortalities through accident and fall in conjunction with other medical issues sometimes associated with VI, which is including deafness, obesity, joint problems, development delay, and diabetes. The loss of vision may be deleterious impact on aspects of daily life. Factors such as mobility, employment, studying, socializing, and leisure pursuit are likely to be compromised. Visually impairment in sports. Based on the first article that wrote by Ben Powys et al. In 2019 states that World Health Organization definition of low vision and blindness are adopted by all VI sports governed by International Blind Sport Federation IBSA. On a second article wrote by Nego Mira Abdullah et al. 2008, persons who are visually impaired use more energy during activity of daily living and tend to have a lower level of physical activity and health-related fitness than those who are sighted. On third article wrote by Maria Passos in 2013 states that visually impairment athletes must be submitted to a visual classification where an ophthalmologist evaluate acuity and visual field. Athlete can be categorized into three levels, which is B1, B2, and B3. B1 states that blind athletes are considered no light perception in either eye, whereas B2 are considered to have severe impaired vision. B3 are considered to have moderate poor vision. On the fourth article, Maria Magno et al. In 2013 say visually impairment swimming athletes must be formally evaluated by ophthalmologists to determine their visual classification. Athletes can be categorized into three levels, which is S11, S12, S13. S11 said that from no light perception in either eye up to light perception, whereas S12 from ability to recognize the shape of hand up to visual acuity. As the teens say that visual acuity above 20 per 600 to 20 per 200 or visual field less than 208 and more. Last article by Christina Fager et al. In 2018. In addition, Paralympic judokas are classified into 3 vision class: B1, B2, and B3, depending upon their vision impairment. Interest in sport is steadily growing, in increasing number of partially sighted and blind athletes participating each year. That's all for me.
Methodology. Most of our articles that we have reviewed state their methodology of gaining the data, but some are not. Article 1, Sports Injuries in Paralympic Track and Field Athlete with Visual Impairment by Maralia, Pesos, Magno et al. 2013, using descriptive, observational, analytic, epidemiological study regarding sports injuries in visually impaired elite Brazilian track and field athlete from the Paralympic team. Ethical approval was obtained from the University of Campinas Ethical Committee, the Brazilian Paralympic Committee, CBP, and the Brazilian Confederation of Sport for Blind Athletes, CBDC, were in agreement with this study. 40 elite athletes with visual impairment gave informed consent to participate in this study, 12 female and 28 male. With regard to their visual class, 14 athletes were TF11, 15 were TF12, and 11 were TF13. Sports injury data were collected using the standardized sports form, which was used consistently by practitioners during the following competition, which is the Paralympic Games 2004, International Blind Sports Federation Pan American Games 2005, International Blind Sports Federation World Championship 2007, Para-Pan American Games 2007, and Paralympic Games 2008. Different case for Article 2, which is the Coaching Athlete with Disability General Principle for Appropriate Training Methodology by Nagor, Mpofo, Boateng, and Khairi. They have not stated any methodology, as this article is mainly used as a guideline to coach with disabled athletes. In research article by Ben Powys and Jessica Louis Macbeth, we know who is a cheat and who is not, but what can you do? Athletes' perspective on classification in visually impaired sport. Firstly, they reviewed the modest literature on classification and sixth sport and established the dominant issue in this developing field. Secondly, they outlined the theoretical and methodological approach of this article, and in doing so, conceptualized an embodied approach to disability sport. Finally, they present their empirical study in 3 interrelated themes, which is the lack of faith in classification as social identifiers, and rumors and gossip of intentional misrepresentation.
Next is for the content, article content. For the sport injuries in elite Paralympic swimmers with visual impairment by Marilia Magno E. Silva et al. The study design is a descriptive epidemiology study. For the participant is 28 athletes, 19 males and 9 females with visual disability. They will give informed consent to participate in the study. 12 athletes were classified as S11, 12 athletes as S12, which means S11 is blind swimmer, S12 is low vision swimmer, and 4 S13 low vision swimmer also. All athletes represent the Brazilian swimming team in international competition between 2004 and 2008. Their participation varied depending on squad selection for each event. Okay, next article is prevalence of sport-related injuries in Paralympic judo, an exploratory study by Christina Fager et al. The study design is a cross-sectional retrospective study. So the participant they made a criteria. There are 3 types of criteria. Okay, for the first criteria is being a judoka with an international visual classification, which is B1, B2 and B3. Okay, B1 which is mean very low or no vision, and B2 is visual acuity. Is the range of visual is about 1.5 to 2.6, and for the B3 is the severe one, the more severe visual impairment, which is the vision is 1.4 to 1.0 visual diameter or less. Okay, the second criteria is being able to communicate in English. Third, being present at the international training camp. Okay, the participation in the study was voluntary and informed consent was collected from all participants. A total 45 athletes agreed to participate in the study. 10 athletes were excluded because they could not communicate in English, and 15 athletes did not respond to the invitation. The questionnaire was delivered during the training camp, and because of the different variety of athletes were given the opportunity to choose how to enter the data via 3 different platforms. Okay.
Comparison of methodology. For Article 1 and Article 4, they are using the same method, which is descriptive, observational and analytical epidemiological of study. So the data were collected during the same following competitions and using the same method, which is Excel 2007 and SPSS 14.0. 2 same tests are using, which is Shapiro-Wilk test and also Kruskal-Wallis test. So for Article 5, Article 5 is cross-sectional descriptive design study, which the study to examine 1-year prevalence of of self-reported sports-related injuries among elite athletes also. This prevalence are used to allow for the examination of the frequency of a specific outcome in a certain population at specific time. So next is Article 2. Article 2 is non-experimental study, which the literature research was conducted to source publish on information based on articles purposes, which this articles purposes is general principle for appropriate training methodology. So there's a lot of impairment in these articles, and visually impairment is one of it. Okay, next is Article 3. Article 3 is using qualitative data from 2 studies investigating among cricketers and footballers. So this study are having face-to-face interviews for ranging for 45 to 2 hours length.
Okay, for the recommendation for this article, well, I have go through 6 type of article, but only 4 of them talks about states on how to prevent and manage injury in visually impaired athlete. Okay, so for the first article, title Sport Injuries in Paralympic Track and Field Athletes with Visual Impairment by Silva et al. 2012. So the issues for this article is postural stability, resulted abnormal gait and biomechanics of lower extremities. So the recommendation for these types of injury is a visual impaired athlete should test with physical assessment to identify muscle imbalance, and also the implementation of several types of core stability training. Okay, then for the second article is sport injuries in Paralympic swimmers with visual impairment by Gola et al. 2013. So the issues for this article is that the obvious injuries were higher than traumatic injuries during swimming competition, where the thoracic spine was the most affected region, mainly by muscular spasms caused by overuse in the paravertebral and scapular stabilizer muscles that are generally overloaded in swimming biomechanics. So these obvious injuries can be reduced by following several types of loads training exercise that focusing on muscle and endurance. So as you know, the obvious injury usually caused by the muscle that is weak, and so we have to do many strength and endurance training to prevent that overuse injury. Okay, so then for the third article is the coaching athlete with disabilities, the general principle for appropriate training methodologies by Abdullah et al. 2008. Okay, so this article generally for the coaches, but as a sport therapist, we must also know how to deal with disabled athletes. So from this article, we find that the states that the visually impaired athletes demonstrate delayed motor development, such as poor balance and inefficient gait, which may be due to their sedentary behavior. So in athletics events such as track and field, swimming and cycling events, totally or partially blind athletes are unable to use vision to determine the proper direction. So the visually impaired athlete require the use of guide or partner to instruct them on what they have to do. Okay, so for swimming event, it is suggested that a coach should instruct the guider or helper to use the device called ball or tapper in order to tap at the back of the visually impaired athlete to make them aware that they are approaching at the end of the pool. Then for the track and field and also cycling event, a coach need to use a hand-body manipulation and hand-to-body manipulation and railing technique to manipulate the athlete's limb to allow the execution of skill or movement, and help athletes to use their kinesthetic tactile sense to feel the movement or skill that the coach is executing. Okay. So for the last article is the prevalence of sports-related injuries in Paralympic Judo by Ferrer et al. 2019. The issues for this article is most injuries occurred during training rather than during competition. Okay, so regarding the body location, the shoulder girdle was the most injured body location, followed by the knee and the other lower parts of leg. Okay, so for the head and spine injuries were lower than upper and lower limb injury, but despite low number of injuries, the severity is critical than any other parts because it involves head and spine. Okay, then so it is recommended that the athlete should minimize the training duration. So in judo, the training duration being called tachiwaza. So the training duration must be minimized, and during the training duration, the coaches must ensure that to have that they have a medical team to give medical support to any injured athlete during the practicing session. During practicing tachiwaza. So the body location injury such as upper limb and upper limb muscle and joints injury can be reduced by improving skills or movement, strength, endurance, and flexibility training. However, for head and spine injury can be reduced by by appropriate medical assessment, neuromusculoskeletal examination, injury surveillance, and video analysis. So during the practicing, a coach, sport therapist, or whoever that is guiding them through is okay. So the coach must record whatever, must have a video recording of whatever they do during their practice, because sometimes they unseen certain parts that may cause the injury, so from the video analysis they can observe what is happening before the injury, and then they can do something about injuries and prevent it from happen. Okay, thank you.
For the discussion, there are a lot of researchers that study the epidemiology of sport injuries in visually impaired athletes. However, there are limited study of the management and prevention of musculoskeletal injuries among visually impaired athletes. Therefore, we can use the available researches to improve and develop the management and prevention of injuries. In an article by McNaught and Silva et al. 2013, the authors studied sport injuries epidemiology in Paralympic swimmers and track and field athletes with visual impairment. They found that swimmers with visual impairment have highest injury at the trunk, and overuse injuries are higher than traumatic injuries. The traumatic injuries such as lacerations, contusions, and abrasions were caused as the athletes were unable to locate line lanes and pull edges. In another study by the same author, the article revealed to have a high injury prevalence among T/F11 class in track and field athletes with visual impairment. T/F11 athletes have poor postural stability that may be affected by vision. Visually impaired athletes have poor proprioception, therefore they have abnormal gait and biomechanics. The author's suggestion is to plan a proprioceptive training for prevention approach as well as reducing muscle imbalance in visually impaired athletes to improve posture and include a core stability training. In other article by K. Farah et al., the article assessed prevalence of sport injuries among Paralympic judo athletes with visual impairment. The results was they found that there is a high prevalence of injury among visually impaired judo athletes compared to able-bodied judo athletes. The most common diagnoses were sprains, strains, and ruptures that was similar to able-bodied judo athletes. The shoulder girdle has the most injury rate. Therefore, the author suggested to improve the athletes' falling skills, strength, and flexibility. The judo athletes also have a risk of injure their head or spine. To this, the author suggested to conduct a neuromusculoskeletal examination neck muscle training, and implementing injury surveillance video analysis that is also being implemented in able-bodied judo athletes. Most injuries in Paralympic judo occurred during tachiwaza, which is the standing techniques in judo. Therefore, the author suggested to reduce time in tachiwaza. The next article by Nagor Ampofo Boateng and Kari 2008 discussed the training methodology for disabled athletes. The article explains obstacle and athletes' physiological condition as a result of their disability. The article also focused on visually impaired athletes. However, it does not directly discuss about the management and prevention of injuries in visually impaired athletes. In the next article by Powis and Macbeth 2019, they examine issues of classification in visually impaired football and cricket athletes. The article describes the athletes with visual impairment have a lack of faith in classification. The classification is used as social identifiers and putting the visually impaired athletes to pressure. This article proved that Paralympic Games, specifically for sport for visually impaired athletes, need to improve their classification tests as athletes may cheat for their own benefit, resulting in unfairness and dirty play. The injury could be increased if similar cases are rising. This is because imagine a B3 judo athlete is the opponent to B1 athlete. Keep in mind that the B3 judo athlete is partially sighted, while the B1 athlete is completely blind. So the B3 judo athlete may showcase dirty play during the match to bring victory to himself, while unintentionally injured his opponent. This is because the B1 athlete is unable to see the attack from the B3 judo athlete, who is have a better sight than him. So as the conclusion, we can conclude that there is a few existing studies regarding musculoskeletal injuries management and prevention specifically for visually impaired athletes. From the articles reviewed, main problems that athletes with visual impairment often face can be observed and analyzed. Therefore, we would like to suggest that future studies should assess injury prevention strategies and management for injury for visually impaired athletes.